Shi Shinrai, Shi Shinrai, Shi Shinrai. Hello folks, welcome to Satellite Psychic. I'm your host, Reverend Bill Kern, and today we have with us Armin Wanner. He is a Swiss analyst. He studied at the Carl Jung Institute in Zurich, and he is now an American citizen, and he has a private practice here in New York City. Welcome to the show, Armin.
Thank you for having me on your show.
Nice to see you today. So, who was Carl Jung, Armin?
That's a good question.
I'm sure everybody wants to know who Carl Jung was.
Yeah, Carl Jung is a Swiss psychiatrist.
Mm-hmm.
Was born in 1875 in a small town on Lake Constance.
Uh-huh.
And he gained world fame first as a collaborator and follower, student of early psychoanalysis.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And friend of Sigmund Freud and all the early psychoanalysts.
Sigmund Freud, yeah.
Right.
So,
then he made a name on his own after a few years working in the circle around Freud and the other psychoanalysts like Adler and Otto Rank and people like that.
so who was Freud? What was he well known for?
Well, you know that he is considered the father of psychoanalysis.
Uh-huh.
And, usually together with Jung is named together with Freud and Adler. They are considered the three early psychoanalysts with their own schools. You know, Freud with his school, Adler with his school,
Uh-huh.
and of course Jung with his school.
Well, what would you say is the real contribution of Carl Jung to the
Well,
field of psychoanalysis?
There are a number of contributions. Really, you cannot summarize it in just one sentence.
Right.
We really can get into this.
Yeah.
But I do think that he has contributed so many things to today's understanding of the psyche and of the soul.
Right.
I think we could say perhaps that he is a person who brought newly into focus the concept of soul and soul making and soul searching.
Soul making.
Modern Man in Search of His Soul is
Wow.
a title of one of his books.
That's great.
So Modern Man in Search of His Soul.
In search of his soul.
Could be summarizing perhaps where he is at in his own life and where he is at for all those people who are searching for soul and meaning.
And meaning in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so a psychotherapist could be considered a physician of the soul, right?
I definitely would think that.
That's a good.
I do think psychotherapist today perhaps replaces in many aspects the spiritual director. He's a form of spiritual director for people who have lost contact with their original church.
I
So that's definitely one aspect. Of course, Jung was a medical doctor, a psychiatrist, trained in medical profession and psychiatric training.
Right.
And of course, that is his first vocation. But then he went beyond that and tuned into the spiritual needs of the person.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps we could say that he is the first holistic doctor, because he took into consideration the whole man, not only the body, but also his psyche and his spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and addressing the psyche and the spirit really, and getting it together with the split off body, makes him the first holistic doctor.
So what is a split? The word split, is that...
Right. Carl Jung, as he is named in this country, his full name is Carl Gustav Jung, but here
Right.
in the United States he's called Carl Jung.
Right.
He worked in the psychiatric hospital in Zurich by the name of Burghölzli Clinic. Burghölzli Clinic, under the directorship of Eugen Bleuler, treated schizophrenics. At the time, this was not called schizophrenia. At the time, it was called dementia precox.
Dementia precox.
That was early dementia, let's say childhood dementia.
So could crazy be another word or not?
That's what the street people call it.
Yeah, street
crazy.
people say crazy.
However, it's a state of mind which is very difficult to understand.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand somebody or something, you call it crazy. But that's, of course, street language.
That's what they say, right? Right.
Now, in that hospital, they treated especially people who were considered to be schizophrenic. And it was considered a split personality.
I see.
And Jung was working primarily with people who were afflicted with that illness. And that's sort of the discovery of the split, that we all human beings are afflicted by splitting. The most famous split is the split between body and mind. You know, we split body and mind. We don't have them together. Or we split sexes, male and female. We split in opposites, and we repress one of the opposites. Good and bad is another split. We are told by our culture and by the religious culture especially to to do good and to repress evil. And there are people that go around saying, "I could never kill." That's a split. Of course, we all are able to do evil things. That doesn't mean we should do them, or we but it means indeed that we are capable of. And if we repress it to the extent that we say, "I would never do that," then we are bordering on a split. And many times when you have people who say they do a criminal act, they kill someone, they do things which are then prosecuted by the criminal system, they come into court and they say, "Oh, I didn't do it. I didn't want to do it. I was told, something within me told me to do it. It was the devil who made me do it." Now, we consider that a split-off part of our own psyche and projected onto an entity out there.
Interesting.
You understand?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Not that we don't think that the devil cannot be a concrete personality, take form of a concrete entity, but it's primarily projected evil from ourselves.
So everyone has inside of them the potential for evil.
Basically, we all have a devil within us.
But because of civilization, we're civilized. We like to think of ourselves as civilized.
We think of ourselves being civilized. If you look at the various happenings in the world, look at the conflict areas in the world, I don't think that we have progressed very much in that direction.
It's coming apart, really. The fibers coming apart.
I can't believe what's happening in Bosnia and Herzegovina and
course.
Serbia. It's just incredible.
It's a nightmare, really, truly,
right.
A living nightmare.
Absolutely.
Right? So. Let's go in this a little further. Why was Jung so popular? Why is he so popular today?
Well, he is fulfilling a need, and the need is people have lost their spirituality or their spiritual connection in many aspects to their original churches, to their original religious background, and however man is a spiritual being, and so they are searching for meaning, for answers, and since their churches cannot satisfy them with appropriate answers for modern man, they do go and look into other systems, and Jung's psychology has fulfilled a great need in that respect.
What could you say is Jungian analysis? How is it different than, say, Freudian?
Jungian analysis is taking the totality of the human being into consideration, and one of the prime concerns is really to look at the split. What is it I repress in my psyche? What is it I don't want to be true in my psyche? What is it I want to deny in my psyche? And we want to re-establish the totality that we originally are. See, if you look at the stories, the story in Western civilization, which is basically dominated by the Judeo-Christian stories of how the world was created, we do have at the beginning the story of paradise. And we have in the biblical literature then another story, the story of paradise to come. The heavenly Jerusalem, for instance, is a re-establishing of paradise, where the lion and the lamb graze together and lie together in the meadow and are peacefully living together. And that's a form of paradise. These are opposites. A lion and a lamb are opposites, and they are coming together. However, if you realize the story of paradise is that there was original harmony, original unity, and through the disobedience to God, they were thrown out of paradise. That's the first split. Separation is a split.
I see.
And the journey between the two paradise is the journey we are on. The journey.
I see.
Jung called it a development of personality or becoming a true individual, an individuation process.
Well, what's an archetype? I've heard this term.
Right, Jung used that term. He coined that term, though after all, it was not him who invented that term. It was a term that was already used by Saint Augustine in the 5th century. And Jung used that term to express something that people who studied mythology had already coined with, for instance, elementary ideas. It was called at the time elementary idea. And Jung used the term archetype in order to give it more universal understanding. The word archetype really invokes something that has application to a greater, in a greater dimension than just the word elementary idea. What it is a pattern of behavior.
Pattern of behavior.
Pattern of behavior, an analog to the instinct, which is a pattern of behavior on the biological level. So the archetype is a pattern of behavior on a mental level, on a psychological level. For instance, the pattern of the behavior of the hero. We all are familiar with heroes, and you can go at any time into any culture. There are always heroes, and we know to identify the hero. And why do we know how to identify a hero? Because it's a pattern of behavior that can be recognized universally. There's the pattern of behavior of the healer.
The healer, okay.
Any time, any place there is a healer can be recognized by his behavior, his classical behavior. Or the teacher, or the mother. We all carry an image of mother or of father or of any such idea. The Scrooge is a pattern of behavior. We all recognize that. It has common features.
Scrooge, right.
That's right.
So that's considered an archetype,
That's
right?
An archetype, indeed.
That's like an archetype of someone who has so much wealth that they hold on to it.
Holding back.
They're trying to squeeze it into their pockets,
absolutely.
right? And not spread it around.
Holding it back, right.
So what is a myth? Where does myth fit in this?
Myth is really a collection of such archetypal behavior patterns.
If
you take the hero myth, we have common denominators of what a hero's journey, a hero's life, and these are patterns of behavior that are pieced together to a story.
Wow.
And that's the hero myth. I mean, we have very classical hero myth. Hercules in the Greek mythology is a hero myth. Or Jesus, life of Jesus, birth of Jesus, death of Jesus is a hero myth.
So
now, when I use the word myth, please to understand, it's not meant to degrade. I mean, people go on, for instance, Ted Koppel uses to say on Nightline, well, but this is a myth, meaning it's not a true story.
It's not true, but it's not.
However, the way we use the word myth is it is a true story. It is a true pattern of behavior.
It's like an allegory?
Well, no, you can compare it. It's a story, yeah, but it is a true story. It's a true pattern of behavior that can be recognized as such.
So there are some people that are living myths in a sense in our society.
Absolutely. Look at Mother Teresa. It's a living mythological pattern of behavior. She is healing She is an aspect of healing. It's an aspect of saving. Is an aspect, and she lives out that pattern of behavior to its to the extreme extent.
So she is an archetype.
She would be. We would consider her an archetype.
And she's living a myth of the healer, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Or there was this Italian monk by the name of Padre Pio who died in 1968 in southern Italy. He had for 50 years the wounds, in his hands, the wounds of Jesus on the cross in his hands and in his feet and on his side. And for 50 years he was living out that myth which we call, or that archetype which we would call the wounded healer.
The wounded healer.
The wounded healer is an archetype, and he has literally lived out this archetype and has healed hundreds and thousands of people, literally healed from their affliction, from their mental, from their spiritual and their bodily afflictions. Not everyone, but there's enough documentation about the healings on spiritual as well as physical level.
It's interesting.
Now, he will call him an archetype, and he represents the archetype of the wounded healer. But of course, he's also the archetype of the priest and the archetype of the monk, by all means.
I see. So,
but the dominating archetype is really that wounded, through his wounds and through his activities as a wounded healer.
Right. So he's living a myth and he's living an archetype.
That's right.
And we could categorize that in two different ways.
Basically.
So could Freud be considered an archetype?
Yeah, you could consider him. He's definitely the archetype of the discoverer, the researcher. He has a tremendous mind. He was tremendously inquisitive. He was tremendously, full of questions. He put us on a new path. You have to understand, in the West, after the Industrial Revolution and the repression of the Victorian age, there was something new had to come, and he was the protagonist of that new vision.
That new vision.
Absolutely, it was Freud was, we could say, even before Jung, through the study of dreams, was coming up with the discovery that we do repress, we do split off, and he discovered it in dreams. When Jung joined Burghölzli Clinic, as I said before, the director of Burghölzli Clinic, Eugen Bleuler, asked Jung to read Freud's dream interpretation. And Jung realized that when he read Freud's dream interpretation, that Freud had exactly discovered the same thing through dreams he had discovered through the study of associations. Now, I would have to explain that whole issue with associations. Pre-existing to Freud and Jung, in psychology departments all over Europe, they worked with associations. And they had put together an association experiment which consisted of 100 words, which they administered to people. They made people respond to a word, like table, chair, lamp, bread, mother, father, sin, and so on, and expected the people to respond to that word. And what they did then is they studied the associations and tried to come up with some kind of answer of the personality. They would try to interpret the personality. Now, Bleuler had asked Jung to do this so that he could turn this into a diagnostic tool, so that when people came to the clinic, they could give them that association experiment, and they would know this person is depressed, that person is schizophrenic, this person is paranoid, this person is a plain neurotic, and so on. But Jung could not do that. He couldn't turn that association experiment into a diagnostic tool. However, what he did with it is, number one, he proved experimentally that there was an unconscious, which Freud had discovered through the study of dreams. And he discovered experimentally the same phenomenon, the phenomenon of repression and split, which he then coined together. You have to understand, these people in clinics worked together. There was a staff. They had conferences. They would report. Jung would report to the staff about, let's say, what he did in his experimental research on the associations. So they coined there the word complex. What a word we use today every day in our language. We talk about father complex, mother complex, inferiority complex, power complex, you know, and so on, complex. And that was coined in Burghölzli Clinic through Jung and the staff at the clinic to identify a repressed content of our psyche.
Oh, it's fascinating.
It
So everybody has a repressed part,
Everybody
right?
has
Our
repressed.
society doesn't permit you to really express your feelings.
Oh, absolutely
and,
not. I mean, the whole issue, the word feeling triggers, of course, that whole thing at a certain time and in certain groups of people. You are not supposed to show a feeling. You understand?
Yeah, keep it
I
in.
mean, it is just simply unbelievable that a mother in Nazi Germany who lost 3 sons, you know, was supposed to be proud. She was not supposed to have feelings of sadness and grief over the loss of her sons. She was supposed to be proud and not show any feelings of grief.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah, that's what creates the craziness, right?
Absolutely. The repression, the extremes, you have to understand, extremes create problems. If you become an extremely one-sided rational person, you create a problem for yourself. And of course, if you are an extremely one-sided feeling person, you are creating problems too.
So what is a complex? What does a complex mean?
Obviously, a complex is a feeling-toned agglomeration, or an agglomeration of feelings around an issue.
Right.
Let's call, you know, mother complex. We have at the center the word mother, and all the issues, the feeling-toned issues around mother, form a complex. Now, if these feelings are all positive, we have a positive mother complex. If the feelings around mother are all negative, you have a negative mother complex. If they're mixed, they might be balanced. And so you have the same thing. If your feelings about yourself are all negative, inferior, well, then we have, of course, a problem. You have an inferiority complex. If they are all superior, they have a superior complex.
Interesting. So it's a way of categorizing the different types, right?
Absolutely, it's a way of categorizing. Jung wanted to do the work, basically, the biologist and botanist Linné, the French Linné did. He categorized the plants, and Jung wanted sort of to categorize the psyche.
Wow, the psyche. So what did Jung think of psychic phenomena? I mean, he must have studied that as well in his work, right?
Jung was a very open person.
Right.
He, of course, as you might know perhaps already, his doctoral dissertation was on a psychic phenomenon. He had a cousin by the name of Helen, and Helen was a medium. She was a psychic. And Helen had weekly sessions in her house. At the time they were called séances. I guess they're still called séances.
No, they are still, yeah.
Today. And Jung was a student at the University of Basel in medicine, and he would attend the weekly meetings of Helen. And he would sit there with a notepad and write down faithfully what Helen said. And he studied over a period of 2 years. He sat in those sessions and took notes on those sessions. And he studied those sessions. And they became the topic, those sessions were the topic of his doctoral dissertation.
Is that right?
At the University of Zurich.
What did he write his dissertation on?
That was then, it is called, to my knowledge, I have here the exact title, and I think even the first page, it was called in German, it's here of course in German, it is called Psychology and Pathology of So-Called Occult Phenomena.
Far out, interesting.
That is his doctoral
That was his doctoral thesis.
And here you have a picture. Unfortunately, we can't show it here.
We'll get the camera in towards the end of the show. Let's see if I can get.
It's okay if we don't. Her name was Helen Preiswerk, and
Hi, Charles. Could you come in a second? We get a few close-ups on something here. Would you mind? Yeah. How about this is this his mother or was it?
No, this is the medium. The
This is
wife.
Helen.
This is
Let's
Helen
get a
Preiswerk.
close in on that there, Charles.
This is the cousin.
Freud's cousin.
No,
Jung's cousin. Excuse
please.
me.
That was a Freudian slip.
Freudian's. That was.
You really don't want to talk about Jung. You prefer to talk about.
No. I don't want to talk about Freud. Believe me. I like Jung. So this is Jung's cousin, who was a medium.
Right, and whose seances he attended every week to gather material, and he wrote then, here you have next page, you have the title page of the doctoral dissertation of Jung's dissertation. Which,
So Armin, if you could,
if I can just show you one page of those notes, there is one page of those notes published here. The amazing thing here is that Helen, in one of her discourses, came up with this structure, which Jung later on identified as a mandala. He is known to have introduced the mandala. And shall we bend it a little bit or straighten it or what?
Just so it doesn't reflect. So that's a mandala that his
right.
That Helen
presented in her trance discourse, and Jung already at the time, don't forget, the man was only about between 20 and 25 years old when he did that, and he already came up with that idea. I mean, of the mandala, which is the Sanskrit word for circle, and which depicts wholeness. That picture we showed you ultimately showed a whole cosmic presentation, a wholeness, a totality. See, we said that Jung really was the first holistic psychiatrist or medical doctor. His concern was with re-establishing wholeness, bringing the opposites together. And while he was as a young doctor, 25 years old, sort of discovered experimentally the split or the repression, and to be that the cause of our illness.
Physical illness.
Physical as well as mental, spiritual illness.
So
it's spiritual too.
So it's a split between the mind, the body, and the spirit. It could be split three ways, right?
Absolutely. It can be split definitely in two ways, body and spirit.
Body and spirit.
See, that's one of the big splits of our culture, is we do not have the two together. We have to get body and spirit together.
Yes.
And we have them separated. Look, in history there are many movements, like who, they neglect the body, they neglect bodily aspects, repress them, consider them inferior, meaningless, useless. What's the body for? Nothing. While actually St. Paul said it is the temple of the Holy Spirit, and we should treat it as the temple of the Holy Spirit.
It is the temple. So I think when you talk about, I think of the Shakers, the Quakers that used to dance when they prayed. Remember that
yes.
they were trying to
get the
bring
body and the mind together.
And bring it together, right?
Those movements really took care of the body. When we talk about body, of course, we immediately think of excessive, let's say, pleasure. And that's not what we are really talking about. We are talking about adequate care, appropriate and adequate care of the body, so that the body can be a good collaborator, cooperator of the mind and the spirit, a good instrument of the spirit. We do have, St. Thomas of Aquinas said that in a healthy body is a healthy spirit, a healthy mind. In corpore sano, mens sana. That was a saying by some medieval philosophy. So definitely.
That's really interesting.
And when we talk about health, the state of health people are in, it's deplorable.
It is what's going on.
Absolutely.
And so
one of New York's doctors said when he was working in the emergency room at Bellevue Hospital, he was surprised how many adult people, good-looking adult people, came in that were actually malnourished.
Wow.
So what kind of care do people give their body?
So we're not really, I've said this before on my show, that I think that it'd be important to, in schools, to teach children about nutrition, teach them how to meditate, teach them about economics.
Absolutely.
How economics work, how important.
Total approach to man.
Right.
A lot of people don't like the idea of talking about Renaissance man. But that's what the Renaissance man was all about.
Right, who's totally whole, right?
A total
round
human being, round human being who was in charge of his body, in charge of his mind, in the service of the culture, society, and of God.
Well, that's fascinating.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm going to open up the lines here, folks. You may want to have a question. You want to talk to Armin or myself. 212-695-8583. Feel free to call in here while we're talking. And don't forget the 900 number above me on the screen, 1-900-884-7297. That's a 24-hour psychic hotline number. That number is going 24 hours a day. You write that number down. You have something you need to talk about, you call that number.
However, keep in mind we cannot resolve any problems on the show. For that, we would have to refer you to problem-solving institutes.
Right. Okay. Hello, caller.
Hello, Bill. This is your old pal Ned out in California.
Hi, Ned. How you been?
All right.
That's good.
I'm impressed by your guest's apparent knowledge there. And
Yes.
I'd like to ask a question for a little discussion.
Yes.
This idea of the collective unconscious that's fostered by Jung, of what value is that to me or to the average man on the street?
Wonderful question. Thank you very much.
I hang up you on, okay?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Ned.
Bye-bye.
Oh, bye-bye. First of all, keep in mind, Jung called it a hypothesis, the hypothesis of a collective unconscious. And let me trace back in 2 steps or 3 steps how he came to that idea. The first time he came to that idea was, of course, through the study of mythology, where he realized that humankind all over the world had stories of a similar nature. Stories of a similar nature. You could go to Alaska, to the Eskimos, and you would find stories about heroes. You could go down to Africa and you would find stories about heroes. You could go down to New Guinea and you would find stories about heroes. The same thing for every culture. China, Africa, South America, American Indians, you have all this. And you realized that the pattern of the stories was the same. So he said they must have something in common. Of course, as you know, there is a story of the hypothesis of migration, that a motif migrates. By all means, we do not exclude that. But his idea was much more that at the same time there could be the other possibility that in the psyche, in a psychic substratum, there was all this psychic structure that could pop up at any time, any place, under any circumstance when the humus was ready. You perhaps know that the radio was invented at the same time by 2 people. How do we explain that? By migration or by rather a subconscious hypothesis? Yes, I think, in this case, I think Marconi would be very unhappy if we said his idea was stolen, but then again, or the other guy who invented it. Now, you do know perhaps a physicist by the name of Sheldrake. Rupert Sheldrake is an English physicist who names today what Jung called the collective unconscious morphogenetic field. And the morphogenetic field is sort of a substructure or the psychic medium, a field we are all in. By the way, Jung said the psyche is not in us, the psyche, we are in the psyche.
In the psyche,
That is very important to keep in mind. Now, Sheldrake would say there is a field, in a psychic field, and we are in that field. And perhaps you have heard about the story of the 100th monkey. It's not a story... Sorry, it's not a story that Jung invented. It's not a story that Jung knew. It's a story that came about in the last 25 years. And it is an experiment that had been conducted on an island of Japan by experimental psychologists who tested monkeys. And they wanted to find out how would a monkey population deal with sweet potatoes, boiled sweet potatoes turned in sand. And the funny thing happened that they all had a sweet potato in their paw and didn't know what to do, because how are you going to eat a potato turned in sand unless you wash it? And there was this little monkey girl who discovered to wash the potato. and showed it to his or her mother. The mother then showed it to the other children, and these people then showed it, these monkeys showed it to the whole group around them, to the tribe on the island on that side. This is, if you want, migration.
Yeah.
The experiment migrated. What they did not anticipate was when they went to the other side of the island to test the same experiment on another monkey population, and they distributed the potatoes to the other monkeys, all the monkeys at the same time washed them and ate them. Now,
my
you
God.
have to explain the phenomenon, and the hypothesis, please, the hypothesis was that it took a certain, how do you say, a certain amount of energy, 99 monkeys, so that it could spring to the 100th monkey, who then would pick up on the pattern of behavior, because it's in a field.
It's interesting. Wow.
That is an experiment that has been conducted in Japan, and it can be read up. It is mentioned, the experiment is mentioned in various literature if you want to find out. Jung also had a case in Burghölzli Clinic of a young man about 30 years old. He was considered to be schizophrenic. One day this patient took him by the arm, took him to the window. This was in 1906, and pointed to the sun and said, do you see that tube that is hanging down from the sun? And do you see when the wind blows from this direction, this tube moves in this direction. When the wind blows from that direction, it blows along. Jung didn't see it, of course, but noted carefully down what this man has said to him, took notes. You have to understand, at the time psychiatry, 1900, 1910, psychiatry was not very developed. What these people were done with was they were given hot baths, cold baths, restraints, there were massages. It was basically safekeeping and observation. And the psychiatrists took amply notes of what they observed. Now, Jung had taken notes of what he observed, what this man had told him. In 1910, 4 years later, he came across a book which was considered at the time, it was entitled as The Magic Papyrus of Paris, and it was considered to be a liturgy, a Mithraic liturgy. And in that book he found a text that corresponded literally to what that man had told him.
Oh,
unfortunately, I don't have the text with me.
Wow.
I didn't anticipate your question, otherwise I could have brought the text with me and read it to you. And Jung said, well, how the heck did this man have access to this information? Jung hadn't read the book, so it could not be thought transference. And the book was not published yet at the time, so it could not be explained as cryptomnesia. He had read it and forgotten it. So how is he to explain this phenomenon? So Jung said there must be a collective psychic substratum, and he called it collective unconscious. The value of this, if you want to find out the value, is going back to the 100th monkey. You have to understand, I'm a psychotherapist and psychoanalyst, and I deal with a lot of people, and many times I get discouraged in my work too, because you wonder, what the hell am I doing and what is this all about? And people ask, what is this all about and what am I doing? I don't seem to change. And I inevitably can tell them the story of it takes 99 monkeys to faithfully do their work, and through the creating of a potential, we will all together achieve a level where we come to, it's like an evolutionary jump.
That's what we need, I think, in society right now. I think we're coming to into a destruction of civilization. It's coming apart on many levels.
Jung was
right?
anticipating a third world war. He was, by the end of his life, basically terrified that if humanity is not doing something about its wholeness, we will continue to fight each other and to go to war with each other. And he said, and if enough people work on their psychological integration, we will avoid destruction, war, and I guess an atomic holocaust.
Annihilation of the species,
Annihilation
right?
of the species.
But what-
But enough people have to do it.
Of course. Well, you know, I don't. Everybody can do that, but.
And I hope with that somehow to have answered your question.
So tell me, Armin, what did Jung think about UFOs? What was his
Well, that's a very good
explanation?
point. As I pointed out in this book, the roundness,
Mhm.
as you know, the appearance of UFOs is always round.
Mhm.
It's a round object in the sky. Jung did not go into pronouncing the objective reality of UFOs or denying.
Mhm.
Neither did he assert nor did he deny.
Mhm.
But he was a true psychologist. He said to him it was the appearance of a symbol, the symbol of wholeness on the horizon, on the sky of people. He interpreted these symbols as symbols of wholeness.
So they wanted the wholeness, or they were
They were
anticipating wholeness.
Symbols in that respect, you see, we dream.
Right.
We access in our dreams the unconscious, and we access future events through our dreams, and dreams are anticipatory, and symbols of wholeness of that nature as symbols of roundness, of mandalas. I have brought a few other pictures of mandalas with me from the book, which are in the book, but perhaps we can show them.
There's a good one, yeah. So it's a symbol of wholeness is really
It's a
what it is,
symbol
right?
of that wholeness which we want to establish and re-establish.
Right. How about that, folks? I can't even get him to pick up the phone here, folks.
All right, it's okay. We can manage, and we will find.
We'll get them in here. We'll
Means
get-
and ways. Many of you have seen pictures. Let's say in the cathedrals and churches, at the end above the exit is a rosetta, a round, huge, wonderful stained glass. How should we say? Window.
Stained glass window,
Window.
yeah.
And they're round, and they are. This is a mandala. It's a rosetta. And it represents the wholeness. By going into church and by communing with the beyond, we get in touch with the other side, which we are usually not in touch with.
Mhm.
And through that, we establish wholeness, and while leaving, we see the symbol of wholeness we have established.
So where do dreams come from, Armin?
Well, we do speculate that they do come from the unconscious.
Mhm,
And by the way, I would like to say the word unconscious was chosen by Jung for the lack of a better term. The lack of a better term, not because he felt that was an adequate term. It was just a term
Charles?
used in humility because he didn't know, and therefore unconscious.
See a few of these, please? So he just didn't have another word. What could be a similar word, you know, that could describe the unconscious?
Well, at sometimes he called it absolute consciousness. Right. Here, believe it or not, this is a fortification of Viking ships in mandalic form. It is not in a square, it is in a mandalic form. There are no more ships there, and can you imagine, it's a few centuries later, it's still there in this way. We all, of course, are familiar. This is a Mexican city. Can you imagine this? The Mexican city was structured in this mandalic form.
Mhm.
We all are familiar, of course, with Tibetan tankas. They often represent mandalas. This is where the term Sanskrit is mandala, and it means circle, and it depicts wholeness, roundness.
How about this one?
There are mandalas like in the Christian church. This is an icon from the Orthodox Church in mandalic form. This is a mandala out of the American Indian culture. Perhaps you know when an American Indian is falls ill, gets sick, he goes to the shaman as people sometimes call him, shaman, to the healer, and he draws a circle of wholeness, and the patient has to sit in the circle depicting the wholeness they want to re-establish, because illness means separation and it's not whole. By the way, just simply for the fun's sake, this is the vitamin C crystal. The vitamin C crystal is a mandala, that's why it seems to be so good.
What's this one? This one here.
Yes, I have the oldest. This is a sun wheel from South Africa. It's a sun representation of the sun. That's a mandala. And then we have this mandala here, which is a painting that Jung painted. Jung was not only a psychoanalyst, he was also an artist and a sculptor. He painted. And with this picture is a very interesting story connected, the story of synchronicity, which a lot of people who are into psychic phenomena might know about. Synchronicity, this was done in 1928. Jung was painting in Zurich in 1928, this painting which he called a Chinese golden castle. Chinese golden castle. And in the mail, the author, the translator of the I Ching, which many people, of course, know, the I Ching, Richard Wilhelm, the translator of the I Ching, sent Jung the manuscript, and he said, Jung, please read this and write an introduction to this. And Jung realized that what he had gone through up to that moment was in this manuscript mainly a process of transformation, and the title of the manuscript was The Secret of the Golden Flower. And it was a Chinese alchemical text which Jung indeed then commented on, and which is published and available today in bookstores, The Secret of the Golden Flower, with the text translated by Richard Wilhelm and commented by Jung, and which depicts the process of becoming whole.
Now, if you had to recommend a book that the folks could read to really get an understanding of Carl Jung and his concepts, what would you?
I personally would highly recommend a book of a colleague of mine which just recently came out. The book is entitled Jung to Live By. The author is Eugene Pascal, Pascal, and it's Warner Brothers, and it is a very inexpensive copy. It's $10.99, and it is written in a very understandable, very, very approachable language, and presents all of Jung. I would highly recommend this book.
That's good. Now, what's alchemy?
That's
2 words or less.
That's a very good question, and to be answered in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
The text I talked about, The Secret of the Golden Flower, indeed is a Taoist or Chinese alchemical text.
Right.
Jung at the time didn't know that was a Chinese alchemical text. Alchemy is a system of transformation. At the time they believed, and many people still do believe today, that you can create gold out of lead. Alchemists were meant to transform the heaviest metal, lead, into the most precious metal, gold.
Gold.
Now, as you know, some people believe that is possible, some people believe it's impossible. Some people still try to do it, and Jung felt that this was much more a projective technique, that actually the people tried to transform their psyche, lead meaning the unconscious, into the conscious. That it was actually a symbolic representation of the psychological process of personality development or transformation or individuation process.
Have you
the
ever-
way he has anticipated it.
Have you ever heard it's like turning your soul into gold?
Well, that's exactly, I guess, from lead into gold, right?
In a sense, they're working.
Absolutely.
They're working here, but really there's some kind of
That's-
transformation going on inside them.
That's right.
Right?
And it's projected into matter.
So they're projecting it, and they're working on the
Working on it,
projection,
right,
and then a
absolutely.
process is going on inside.
That's right. That's
So-
what they do. That's what's meant to be done.
So how do folks access their dreams? What's a good thing to do? I mean,
Well, we
it's-
try to access, as we said, the unconscious material, the lead, and transform it into gold. And the easiest, perhaps, I mean, for some people it's not the easiest, is just to remember dreams.
when you wake up.
Whenever we wake up, I had once a young man in analysis, and he came in and he said, the doctor sent him because he had heart palpitations, which were not physiological.
They couldn't find anything.
There was nothing
Right.
wrong, so he said there must have something to do with his psyche. And so here comes this 30-year-old man, big, butch, hot shot, guy.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I know you psychologists want dreams. I don't believe in dreams. I don't want to have anything to dreams. I don't want to remember dreams. So I said, well, how can I get to you?
How can you help this guy, right?
So I said to him, all right, you don't believe in dreams, I believe in dreams. Why don't we make a pact? You tell me every dream that wakes you up. Only those dreams that wake you up. I don't want to know any other dream. Guess what? Every week he brought in a dream. Came up.
It's very rich dreams there, I'm sure.
Can you imagine? And then suddenly he remembered dreams and he believed in dreams.
See that, folks?
Well, very.
We got a caller here. Hello, caller.
Greetings, Bill. This is Ted Bond.
How you doing, Ted?
Pretty good. How you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Okay, my birthday's 10/15 of 64.
Right?
You was talking about circles.
Yes?
I'm very interested in Native American things.
Uh-huh.
I called to tell you about a circle. If you got a piece of paper,
Yeah.
draw yourself a circle.
Yeah?
Okay, now draw yourself an X in the circle from
X.
top of the thing being a north, the bottom a south,
Right?
and the east on one end,
Right?
and a west on another.
Right?
Okay, now connect your north and south, your east and your west.
Right?
Okay, this is called a medicine wheel.
Okay.
Medicine wheel is a way of touching and expressing harmony between all living things. And we're all placed within this wheel. And we're all equal in this wheel because it's a circle. Now your directions have meanings.
Mm-hmm.
And the circle is known as the medicine wheel is known as a mirror that reflects. Like a person is like an oak tree, because when the acorn falls from the oak tree and it's buried by the squirrel, they're under the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And then they seek to grow back up through the ground to see the sun where they once were.
Mm-hmm.
So this is that's a reflection of man, and each person is a reflection of man. And the north is represented by a buffalo, because the buffalo is a great giver. And there's wisdom found in the north, and the color of the wisdom is white. In the east, it's found illumination, and its medicine animal is the eagle. And in the south,
Yeah.
found innocence, faith, trust, and growing. And its medicine animal is the mouse.
The mouse?
The mouse, yeah,
Okay.
mouse. And in the west is found introspection, and its medicine animal is the bear, and its color is black. And a person's got to seek out all four of these ways to be a balanced person in harmony within their decisions.
Well, that's interesting. That.
If you'd like to know more about this, I'd suggest a book called 7 Arrows by Jaime Yosef Storm. I think you'd really enjoy it.
7 Arrows by Homnius?
Jaime Yosef, I couldn't dare spell it for you.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
7 Arrows will get it for you.
Okay.
And that's one of the best books on Native American spiritual learning that, a person reads that, they've got a good concept, because this medicine will exist within, as far as I know, all the tribes.
That's really good information.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just for your information too, Jung in 1925 traveled to the Pueblo Indians, to Taos, and he had many discussions with Mountain Lake, Viano, if we can get him into focus. And his niece, who is still alive in Taos, remembers Jung having come to Taos and spoken with her grandfather. And Jung talks about this in his Memories, Dreams and Reflections, and remembers him in many of his articles about this. They kept a correspondence throughout their lives, and Jung was profoundly impressed and profoundly touched by the Pueblo Indians in New Mexico.
That's interesting. I figured that maybe from what I'd heard you talking about, it sounded maybe that way.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Jung was not an armchair psychologist. He traveled throughout the world. He traveled to Africa. He traveled to India. He traveled to be in close contact. That's to respond to the question of the gentleman before. He did research before he came up with some of the answers. He was not a light-hearted man who just threw ideas out into the air. He tested them and he connected them with other cultures and was looking for harmony and correspondences all around the world. And I guess he succeeded.
You can, well, we're all the same. I mean, we're all equal.
Basically, we do have to recognize that we are all one, and we have to learn to respect each other for that.
Yes, because the Creator made each one of us different.
Absolutely.
But we're all different. We are all the same.
Absolutely.
That's right.
We have to recognize that and take it very serious. And what we have to learn is really respect. We don't respect each other enough.
That's true. My medicine name is Buffalo Eagle. The eagle who tries to fly away with the buffalo.
Wonderful.
The who tries to give away to the eagle.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ted.
I'll let somebody else get on.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's really true, huh? That
no.
mandala is everywhere. And,
It is. That's why you see universal, the collective conscious or unconscious. I mean, it is, though Jung called it a hypothesis, you can put literally your finger on it. Literally. You can go to all cultures, you will find in all cultures the same expressions of the same idea. You understand? And the
Yeah.
circle is the perfect idea of wholeness, of completion.
A symbol
And
of wholeness.
as the American Indians have perhaps really perfected this to an art in re-establishing the whole. You see, what the American Indians realize is illness is being split. It's not being whole. And the wholeness has to be re-established, and they do it in a wonderful symbolic way by sitting in the medicine wheel and doing the chanting and the ceremonies and the ritual by which we are becoming whole. That sets our psyche into the proper frame of reverence.
Wow. Well, this has been real interesting, Armin. I really appreciate you coming in today and
Thank you.
speaking with the folks out there. I'm sure they've got a lot of good information, a lot to think about.
I hope they profited from the short hour.
Yeah, well, will you come back again sometime?
I would love to come back.
All right, great. We'll do that then. Well, folks, remember, this is the day the Lord made for you to be joyous and content. I want you to be happy that you're alive. There are a lot of good things going on out there in the world. Make sure you're a part of them. God bless you, and bye-bye. See you tomorrow, folks.
Thank you very much.
She Shinrai, she Shinrai, she Shinrai, shin. She Shinrai, she Shinrai, she Shinrai, shin. She Shinrai, she Shinrai, she Shinrai, she Shinrai. She Shinrai, she Shinrai, she Shinrai, shin. Folks, don't forget to write down your birthday, the day, the year, the month that you were born, the hour and the minute, and the place that you were born. Put it in an envelope and send it to me. This is the Reverend Bill Kern at Cathedral Station, Post Office Box 1323, 215 West 104th Street, New York, New York, and the zip is 10025. That address will come up here on the crawl. I'm going to select one birthday a week and draw up the chart and talk to you about it on the air, folks. Bye-bye. Good thing I pointed that out there. Right? Today we're going to talk about the I Ching, folks, which is the ancient Chinese book of changes. It's probably the best technique of divination that I know. It's really remarkable in its profundity, its accuracy. It never lets me down. It's where I really turn when I have a real question to talk to God about. I go to the I Ching. So folks, the I Ching, and I have 4 different versions here, folks, that I'm going to show you, and I'm going to take you through it and show you what the ritual is. The I Ching is a remarkable work of profound wisdom that was passed down from ancient culture to ancient culture. Living closer to nature, the ancient sages found all people are provided for, supported, and instructed by the great nature or the Tao, or some people like to call it God. After long periods of observation and life experience, they gathered information about nature, and in so doing discovered the laws behind all diversity that is found in nature. This is an ancient attempt to find the laws which regulate all phenomena. They found the laws of great nature are the laws of humanity. Human beings and the great nature are one, and harmony is the key to life. This vision of the universe became a spiritual faith of ancient developed people. They lived in harmony with nature, and living in harmony with nature is the foundation of the I Ching. Now, Mike, we get a shot of these. I don't know how to. Can they? Where are they?
Why don't you put them on the purple thing? There you go.
Can you see?
Yeah.
Folks, these are really old coins, old Chinese coins. And you need 3 coins. You can use, you can use nickels or quarters or whatever, but I like to use coins. These are very old. And I have dice here too. These are I Ching dice, but I don't like to use these that much. They're just not the same as the coins. But the ancient Chinese used to use yarrow stalks. They had 50 stalks that they would put in this long tube, and they'd shake it until one stalk would come out, and that stalk would have the answer to the question on it. But it's a ritual, and I want to go through it with you folks. So, but first let's talk a little more about how the I Ching came into being. The I Ching, or the Book of Changes, is the most ancient book of China, and perhaps the most ancient book in the world. There were 3 different versions of this book, and the first one appeared around 2205 BC, and it was used until 1766 BC. Then the second version came from 1766 BC. It was in use until 1150 BC. And finally, the third version came 1150 BC and was used until around 249 BC. Chu Yi was the ruler who was in power at the time. And this is the one that remains today, the one that was in use in 250 BC. So between 251 BC and 207 BC, the first emperor of the Qin dynasty unified the 6 kingdoms of the country, and his name was Qin Shi Huang. Now, he made a great effort to unify his whole country, and he was very strict. He had terribly strict measures that he used to unify his country. One, he had the adoption of one language throughout the whole country. They all had to speak the same language. He had a tyrannical system of repression and suppression, and he suppressed and destroyed learning to keep people ignorant and submissive, in an ignorant and a submissive state. This is really terrible what he did. In 215 BC, he ordered all of the scholars to be buried alive. Can you imagine that, folks? It's unbelievable. This is what history tells us. And he did this to humiliate them. And he searched out and destroyed all the country's works of literature and philosophy, including the most revered classics. So this guy was really a nut job. This guy was crazy, folks. But he wasn't that nuts, because he did save the one book which we have today, which is the I Ching. And he needed this book. He knew he needed this book for political guidance and for divination. So the one book he saved is probably the greatest book he could have saved, because it is truly a wonderful, wonderful book. So there is a ritual that you use, folks. It's called the ritual of divination. And this is not a series of meaningless superstitions carried out with any sense of their meaning. It is a process that can be seen in human activity. It has the effect of focusing our attention on an importance and meaning of what we are doing. And we start, folks, with a table. You want to get a low, square table. Now, this table isn't square. It's not low. But it's the only table we got here, folks. So this is the table we're going to use here. You have to have a table. You need an incense burner. You need a bundle of 50 arrow sticks, which I don't have, but I do have 3 Chinese coins. And this is my favorite way I like to work. So you need 3 coins. And you need a copy of the I Ching, which I got 4 of them here. I'll get Mike to give you close-ups. I'll tell you who the authors are, so if you want to get them, folks. It's always good to have an I Ching in the home. You need some blank paper. It's always important. What I like to do is keep a little notebook of your questions and the answers that you get from the I Ching and write them down, because the question may come up again in your life, and you can go back and look and see what you got the last time. You may not have to throw it again, because these are profound truths that keep reoccurring. The questions keep recurring, and the same answers keep reoccurring. So the most important thing, folks, is the table must face south. And this table, we're facing south. Over there is west, behind me is north, and east is over there. And I can see today, folks, looking out the Empire State Building. I should have my do my broadcast from the window so you folks could see, but it's beautiful out there today. Clouds in the sky, and the sun's starting to set, it's starting to go down. It's a beautiful sunny day, but it's very cold here in New York. So before you begin, folks, it's important to purify to purify yourself. Some people like to fast. Well, I fasted yesterday. I'm not going to fast today, but you can compose yourself and take a bath. That's a good thing to do. A lot of times when people want to consult the I Ching, they rise in the morning, they bathe, and then they go into the divination. So the first thing you got to do, folks, is you got to burn some incense. So I'm going to, got some of my favorite incense here. Burn some incense. So you put the incense on the incense holder. And what I told you, folks, you never blow out a match. You shake it out. And we have to light a candle, folks. So I have a candle here also. That one doesn't want to go out. There we go. And what this is, folks, this is an outward sign of a sincerity when you light a candle. And the incense is the same sort of thing. Now, folks, I want you to think. Consider your question. You want to consider your question. We divine to give ourselves a direction out of confusion. That's why we do it, folks. So you consider your concerns quietly if you can see a clear way out of your problem. That's what you want to do. A lot of times when you focus yourself like that, you can see a clear way out, and you don't have to divine the answer. The purpose of divination is to cultivate a personal meditation. If it is divination, then you kneel on the ground or a cushion before you start and pray. And the prayer that you use, I'm not going to kneel down, folks. You won't be able to see me if I knelt down. This is a prayer that the Chinese sages would use for divination. And you can use any prayer that you prefer. Heaven is silent and nature goes its hidden ways without words. Yet I believe this side of nature can be felt, and I believe that when I ask sincerely, heaven will communicate a reply to me. In this matter, I am considering, I do not know what actions will bring good fortune or ill fortune. I do not see my way, and I ask for guidance and clarity. Now comes the time of the question. Well, folks, let's see. What should we ask? Maybe get somebody out of the control room. Are you one of you folks want to call in with the question? Go ahead, folks. 212-695-8583. Call me in with the question here, and we'll see what the I Ching tells you. This will be fun. That's 212-695-8583. No matter what the question is. Now, while you're doing that, folks, you're cooking up a question there. I have here the I Ching workbook. It's written by R.L. Wing. This is a wonderful book. It's a workbook that you can actually fill in the blanks on the inside. It's about $15. The workbook you are holding will guide you through the laboratory of the universe. You are the investigator, and the experiments that you make and record in this book will eventually lead you to a greater understanding of the cosmos and yourself, one and the same. This book is published by Doubleday, folks. You can probably get it in your bookstore. Doubleday and Company, Garden City. This book was copyrighted in 1979. It's by R.L. Wing, the I Ching workbook. That's one that I always like to refer to. I have myself about 15 different translations at my office, and I only use, I'd say, about 9. When I have a serious question, I'll look at them all, because sometimes you need more than one opinion. There are many different translations and many different styles of translations. This book is probably the most popular one. It's got a yellow cover, has about 800 pages, and this is the Book of Changes. It's the Richard Wilhelm translation. It was published by Princeton University Press. This was first printed in 1950. This is a classic. I know you can find this one in the bookstores, folks. This is a real good one. The other one I like to use is a little book that I found only a few years ago. This book came out 1988. It was written by Carol K. Anthony, A-N-T-H-O-N-Y. This is a guide to the I Ching. And this book is falling apart. It's poorly made. I think it was a self-publishing venture. Let's see, Anthony Publishing Company, Stowe, Massachusetts, 01775. I think it's now reprinted now, and it's out. I think a big publishing company has picked this up. So you can find this in the bookstores too, I believe. It's a Guide to the I Ching by Carol K. Anthony. And finally, the fourth version that I bought that's really a good one. This is an old one. This is The Secrets of the I Ching by Murphy. Joseph Murphy. It's published by Parker Publishing Company, West Nyack, New York. And this was published in 1970. This book is unique because he draws in explaining the different hexagrams. There's 64 hexagrams, folks. He uses passages from the Old Testament and New Testament, from the Bible. So this is good for Christians to use because it really has just a short phrase from the Bible to really answer your questions. So there we have 4 different versions here. Maybe I can get Stan to come in. Let's see. Amazing instrument, the telephone there, folks. See if I can get someone to come in here. Hello? Hey, is Stan in there? Oh my God, what's going on? Is Charles in there? Mike? Come on in here, Mike. We'll use Mike as a guinea pig today, folks. You never know what we're going to get here. Mike, can you give me a close-up on a few of these books? And then
Sure.
I want you to give me a question, and we'll show these folks.
Put the phone there.
That was me. I called it. How else am I going to get you out of there? That's the way you do it. Folks, this is live TV. That's what's so great about it. This is the I Ching workbook by R.L. Wing. Now, let me show you here, folks. In the back, they have a guide. You see there are 64 different hexagrams that are composed from the coins. And it might look complicated, but it's an easy thing to figure out. And then you look up the one hexagram, then you find the other one, then you find the number, and the number tells you what page to look. Which hexagram. Like here's one here. Just see, folks, it's the 32 hexagram. It's called Enduring. Here it is over here in Chinese. Then it has an explanation. And then on this page here, it has all the different moving lines, which gives you a precise answer to your question. And over here you can write in your different dates and answers. So this is, I'm telling you folks, it may seem a little complicated. Maybe we'll have to do 2 sessions on this, but this is really great. Now this is let's see, how are you going to see that one? How about this one? A Guide to the I Ching by Carol Anthony. How about that one, Mike? This is the one that's beat up. It's a great book. Okay, so Mike, you got a question? You need an answer on, Mike?
Oh, jeez. I'm the guinea pig, huh?
Yeah, it's really painless. This is really
A question.
yeah. Just think of something. Folks aren't calling in here. They're a little frightened. I think of the I Ching. But this is the best oracle I've ever seen.
Let's see. How about something simple like
Yeah.
my future job situation?
Future job situation. Want to ask about that? Okay. He's concerned about his job situation there, folks. I think we all have problems like that from time to time. So, Mike, what I want you to do, I want you to just throw these coins into the bowl 6 times. There's a mystery hand in there. Okay, well, let me see what you got there.
Huh?
Okay, he's got 2 tails and 1 head, folks. Okay, take them out, throw them in there again. Watch, don't burn yourself in the candle there, Mike. 2 heads and 1 tail. You always want to write the question down, too, folks. And what was it? How am I going to do?
How's my job situation in the next couple months?
How's my job situation? 2 tails and 1 head. Sounds ridiculous, right, folks? But you wait, you see the answer he gets. Ah, we got 3 tails. That's a moving line. 2 tails, 1 head.
One more time.
Yeah, one more time, Mike. 2 tails and 1 head. Okay, folks, now what I do from these combinations here, I'm going to do a hexagram because I know what it means. 2 tails and 1 head, that's a broken line. 2 heads and 1 tail, that's a broken line. 2 tails and 1 head, that's a broken line. 3 tails is a moving line. It's a broken line, but it means something. This is where the answer is going to come for Mike's question. Then we have 2 tails and 1 head, 2 tails and 1 head. It's got a lot of tails in there, folks. So you go to the back where it has this page. It shows all the different combinations. And I'll see. Let's see. Mike has got. He's got kun over kan. Kun kan. See if I got that right. Kun kan. That's right. So that's 7. The inner world arrangement is kun chin, which is 24. So you thinking about returning to school, Mike? Huh?
No.
Well,
Not at all.
Chien kan, that's 40. Okay, now folks, I got the numbers. Now all I got to do is look it up. So I always go to the Wilhelm translation first. That's the most complicated. It's a good one, though. It's a classic. This is a classic translation, folks, and he had 7. 7 is the army. You're in the army now, Mike. The army needs perseverance and a strong man, good fortune without blame. Without strict discipline, nothing can be accomplished. But this discipline must not be achieved by force. See that, folks? It's telling him he's got to have some discipline. War is always a dangerous thing, and it brings with it destruction and devastation. Therefore, it should not be resorted to rashly, but like a poisonous drug, it should be used as a last recourse. It's something to think about, but discipline. So we're going to look at the answer. It's 6 in the 4th place, folks. The army retreats, no blame. In face of a superior enemy with whom it would be hopeless to engage in battle, an orderly retreat is the only correct procedure, because it will save the army from defeat and disintegration. It is by no means a sign of courage or strength to insist upon engaging in a hopeless struggle, regardless of circumstances. So does that tell you anything? We got to look a little deeper, huh, Mike?
A little deeper.
That gives you a clue, though, right? I think I know what he's thinking. Huh? Now, this is the Anthony translation, folks, and listen to this. On being confronted by inferior elements in others or with a situation which arouses our emotions and pressures us to act, we should retreat. Retreat is a disciplined disengagement from all emotional responses into neutrality and acceptance of the situation as it is. Disengagement must proceed step by step in a determined way so that we do not change direction or allow ourselves to become further involved. Thus, our army retreats. You getting any clue there? It's telling you to
Should I quit?
No, it's telling you to retreat and let the situation unfold. Now, this is the R.L. Wing translation. The obstacles ahead are insurmountable. Struggling against them is useless. Therefore, the intelligent maneuver is retreat. Well, we'll just see what happens. Now, I always look at the Christian one last. Mike, you're Christian, right?
My mom is.
Your mom's.
My
Well,
dad's,
see.
Jewish, so what's that make me?
Mixed. You're Jewish and Christian. That's.
How about that?
You got the Old Testament and New Testament. So, 6 in the 4th. Oh, what king, going to make war against another king, sitteth not down first and consulteth whether he is able with 10,000 to meet him that cometh against him with 20,000. He sendeth an assemblage and desirous conditions of peace. You can't grow a tooth. It is best you go to a dentist and bless him. If you are very ill, see a doctor. If you had faith, you could heal yourself. Don't wait until you get worse. Get immediate attention. According to your faith, it is all done unto you. Don't blame yourself because you can't meet a certain situation. Do the next best thing and come to a state of peace about it. When the odds seem insurmountable to you, don't fight the conditions. Seek counsel and help and pray for guidance. Remember, if you were always walking in the consciousness of God, you would never be sick. You would be able to solve all problems. You would not have reached that plateau yet. If you had no money but had absolute unwavering faith that God would supply all your needs, it would be done according to your faith. So what do you think here, Mike? You got something out of that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
See, folks, this is a philosophy, and it's giving you a certain philosophical point of view. It gives you something to ponder about the answer to your question. And if you think about it and meditate on
So I
it,
need to step back a little bit and let things unfold. Huh?
step back, let it unfold, and don't engage it. Don't get into any confrontation with it.
Okay.
It's going to, you know, it's going according to God's plan, and that's the way it's going to go anyway. Anything you can do isn't going to change that, you know. But remember what it said about discipline.
All right.
Discipline's important. So, folks, it may seem complicated, but this is something worth learning. The I Ching is a wonderful, wonderful tool.
So psychic?
On two?
One.
One. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Who we got here?
Renee?
Hi, Renee. You want to ask a question to the I Ching?
Yeah, I do. I've got a big decision in my work area.
Okay.
Oh, work, and I'd like to know about it.
Okay, let's see what the I Ching says for you. You ever done this before?
Never in my life.
Okay, we've got two heads. Two heads. Whoa! Come on back. Got two heads, two heads. Two tails. Three tails. Two heads, two heads, two tails, three tails. Got two more to go here. Three tails, two heads. Okay, let's see, I'm writing it down here. Two heads, two tails, three tails. You got a moving line. We got a good answer. We got two answers here. It's always good to take the last one.
Can I sit back and wait, hang up and listen to you?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, don't run your bill up. Go ahead. And then if you have any more question, you give me a call back, okay?
Will do.
Okay, Renee. That's a smart thing to do. No sense leaving the phone hang on there. So you look it up in the back here, folks, in the hexagram. He's got Kern 2. Kern 2 is 41. Inner world is Chin. It's 24. He's returning to the work situation. 10 for the future arrangement. So 41. Okay, here we go. Decrease. 6 in the 5th. You are marked by fate, Renee. Nothing stands in the way of this. It comes about through refined inner forces that have led you to this situation. Fear nothing. Good fortune is coming. How about that? Looks like you're going to be all right there, Renee. Let's see, 41. Decrease combined with sincerity brings supreme good fortune. Without blame, one may be persevering in this. It furthers one to undertake something. How is this to be carried out? One may use 2 small bowls for the sacrifice. Well, that's something we don't want to get into, the sacrifice. All right, here's another one, 6 in the 5th. Someone does indeed increase him. 10 pairs of tortoises cannot oppose it. Supreme good fortune. If someone is marked out by fate for good fortune, it comes without fail. All oracles, as for instance those that are read from shells of tortoises, are bound to concur, to give him favorable signs. He need fear nothing, because his luck is ordained from high. You're going to be all right, Renee. You got something really good coming. And it's your fate. It's coming to you because you've earned it. And it's your time to have something good happen for you. Our effort to follow the path of the good and the beautiful will lead to success and to the rescue of those to whom we are tied by inner ties. These are really nice. You got... Renee, it's going to work out for you. It's going to work out very well for you. And finally, I'm going to read the Christian translation, which is the one I like. For whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. Romans 10:13. I got one on 2? Be with you in a minute, 2. The name means the nature of God, and God is all-powerful, the only power there is. One with God is a majority. There is nothing to oppose the supreme power. Turn to the God presence quietly with faith and confidence and affirm that God is opening up your path and solving your problem. Remind yourself that to him nothing is impossible, and great blessings will be yours. There you go, Renee. Can't beat that one. Hello, caller. Hello.
Hello.
Who we got here?
This is Cindy.
Hi, Cindy. Where are you calling from, Cindy?
Hudson, Michigan.
Huntington.
Hudson.
Hudson. Okay. What question do you have today, Yer?
I'm just curious if my marriage is going to make it or not.
Oh, that's a good one. Let's see what we get here, Cindy. Do you want to hang on? Do you want to hang up and let me...
Yeah, I'll just hang up and listen.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Marriage. Is it going to last? And this was Cindy. Okay, Cindy, let's see what we get here. Got 2 heads and a tail. Two tails. 2 heads. Two tails. Two tails. Two heads. So you didn't get a moving line, Cindy. That's not bad. That's good. That will simplify things. Okay, so you got Ken Lee. That's 22. Inner world arrangement. Chien Khan. Okay, let's see, 22. Grace. God, you couldn't get a better one than that, Grace. Grace, in an unmoving form, suggests that the moment is isolated in time. While you can see the true perfection that might be in the situation of your inquiry, it is not necessarily consonant with reality. You are dealing with idealisms. There is no redemption in your illusions, however fervently you feel them. The perfection in heaven has put stars in your eyes. That's something to think about there, Cindy. You want me to read that again? Why not? Grace, in an unmoving form, suggests that the moment is isolated in time. While you can see the true perfection that might be in the situation of your inquiry, it is not necessarily consonant with reality. You are dealing with idealisms. There is no redemption in your illusions, however fervently you feel them. The perfection in the heavens has put stars in your eyes. So you got to deal with the reality of what is and what you know yourself, how your marriage is doing and how it's working out. And you have to separate between illusion and reality. You know, what you want to see and what you really see are two different things. And you got to separate them and look at that and decide for yourself, you know, are you seeing, is this really good for me, or is this not good for me? And don't be too idealistic about it. Be realistic about it. And if you're having a situation, you need to discuss it with your husband, you should discuss it with him. But be realistic. Don't be overtaken by illusions or delusions of grandeur. Be realistic about it. Be real about it. So, folks, anyone else, give me a call here at 695-8583, 212-695-8583. Don't forget the 900 number above me on the screen here, 1-900-884-7297. That's a psychic hotline number. That's going 24 hours a day. There are psychics working that number. It's $2.99 a minute. You have to be over the age of 18 to use that number, and it's for entertainment purposes only. So who out there has a question for the I Ching there, folks? Give me a call. Maybe I can rustle somebody in from the control room in there. Got the bushes here, folks. See, I got a plant here, a tree there, and flowers. Yeah, has anybody in there got a question? What about you? You got a question? Is Charles there? Are you all alone? I don't believe this, folks. Yeah, they're running around looking for a question, folks. They don't know what it looks like. Hello? Yeah. Yeah, you guys. You're no fun, you guys. All right. Nobody's got any questions, folks. I tell you, these people in the control room are unbelievable. Anyway, the sun's coming in the window here. It's up on the wall there. I can see it real bright and shiny. It's going to be a beautiful sunset today. I think I should do that. I think I should move my desk over by the window, turn the camera around, and you folks could see all across Manhattan into New Jersey. I have to talk to them about that. We're so high up in the air here. So, folks, when you use the I Ching, when you get two tails, that's a yang. You know, there's the yin-yang, you know, the two opposing forces that go together and keeps the whole universe spinning. And two heads is a yin. Three heads is an old yin that moves to a yang, and three tails is an old yang that moves to a yin. That makes a lot of sense, huh, folks? You're intrigued with that one, I know. Hello, caller.
Hi, Bill. This is Christy from Seattle.
Hi, Christy. How are you doing today?
Which is fine. My question is, when are we going to move?
When are you going to move? Okay, you get an answer on that one.
Okay.
You want
I'll hang up and just listen to you. Is that okay?
Sure, go on. Fine, Christy.
Hi.
Bye-bye. See what the I Ching says. I don't know what kind of answer we're going to get on that. Got two tails. Two tails. Three heads. That's good. Two tails, three heads. Two heads. Two tails. Two heads. Two heads, two tails, two heads. So let's see what this comes up to here, folks. Got a moving line in the third position. It's a real process, folks. You see, this is a real meditation here, just doing this whole thing. So you have Li Leaken, it's leaking. Okay. With an inner world of Tucson. Tucson. You thinking about moving to Tucson because the roof is leaking? That might be it. You never know. Tucson, huh? Tucson leaking. Kyun, we got Lee Kyun. Well, it looks like it's still leaking, you know. In the future, it's still leaking. Traveling. Ha! Look at that. See that, folks? He tell me this isn't something. She got traveling. All right, see what 9 in the third is. It's always good to check out the line. Offensive and careless behavior in your position are great mistakes. You are in danger of losing what security you have by interfering in matters that are not your concern. Those who may have once been loyal will then withdraw, leaving you in a perilous state. Now, I don't know how that applies to your situation, Christy, but you got to think about that. Let's see what the other translations tell you. What's the matter with you guys? Any questions out there? Hey, what are you doing there? Charles just came in the room. Charles is a trusty cameraman there. Let's see. All right, let's see what it says in this translation. This is the other one here. The Wanderer's Inn burns down. Truculence, as in menacing or bullying attitude to intimidate other people's inferiors, does not succeed. Neither does an aloof or an arrogant attitude. If we disdain our inner world of obligation by giving up on the situation, we act in a high-handed manner towards the sage and thus lose his help and protection. Our inner world resting place refers to times when we feel free and independent. This resting place burns down if we self-confidently abandon our task to rescue those for whom we are responsible. A half-hearted and almost negative acceptance of this task indicates that our ego has intruded to collapse our will. We may overcome this assault by the evil power if we realize that being half-hearted comes from misunderstanding the wonderful way things work when we allow them to. This line refers to times when we seek answers from the sage to questions of inner conflict. Since these questions spring from an emotional drive to be released from doubt rather than from a quest for truth, no rational answer will satisfy them. To make progress, we must cease the inner conflict which causes us to distrust the creative. We must cease asking this type of question. Let go and return to the path of humility and acceptance. See, sometimes the book talks back to you, folks. Okay, let's see what the Wilhelm translation says. A truculent stranger does not know how to behave properly. He meddles in affairs and controversies that do not concern him. Thus he loses his resting place. He treats his servant with aloofness and arrogance. Thus he loses the man's loyalty. When a stranger in a strange land has no one left on whom he can rely, the situation becomes very dangerous. Wish I had some feedback from you, know what your situation is. And finally, see what the Christian answer is. There was no room for them at the inn. Luke 2:7. The inn is where men gather to gossip and find fault, where the mass mind governs with its superstitious fears, hates, angers, and hostilities. There is no room in such a mind for a realization of the divine presence which can heal. Restore your mind to peace and guide and direct you. God is the great stranger to millions of people. When you think your intellect and your ego can solve the problem of life, when you fail to contact the infinite intelligence and be governed by its power and wisdom, you get in trouble and attract loss. So that's the answer there, Christy. It's a deep answer. There's more there than what meets the surface, and you need to think about it and ponder it. The time of traveling is primarily a state of mind. Yet it leads the traveler to very real spaces. Proper attitudes are vast important when moving through both time and space.
One, please.
One. Hello, caller.
Hey, yes, I have a question for you.
Okie dokie.
Gene from Texas.
Hi, Gene.
Yes, I'd like to know what is my karmic connection with my older brother.
It's your older brother. Well, that's an interesting question. You want to hang on? You want to?
No, I'll call you back if I have any other questions.
Okay, there, Gene. Thanks for calling, buddy. Okay, we got two heads. Two heads. Two heads. A lot of heads. Let's see, that's the karmic connection with his younger brother. Two heads. Two tails. Two heads. Two heads, two tails, two heads. Okay, let's see what that one is. Okay. Okay, we got Lee Chin, 14, with an inner world of Tu Chien, 43. Sovereignty. Sovereignty demands a firm adherence to your principles regarding the object of your inquiry. There should be no dogma or pretension in your words, ideas, or convictions. Absolute clarity of mind combined with strength of character will give you the integrity necessary to accomplish your aim and to continue past this time. Does that answer your question there, Gene? If it doesn't, give me a call here. Shall I read that again? Sovereignty demands a firm adherence to your principles regarding the object of your inquiry, which is your brother, Gene. There should be no dogma or pretensions in your words, ideas, or convictions. Absolute clarity of mind combined with strength of character will give you the integrity necessary to accomplish your aim and continue past this time. Okay there, Gene. Hello?
Line one, please.
Okay, sorry there, pal. Hello?
Yeah, this is me. This is Gene. I called, and I wanted to know my older brother. You wrote down younger. Is that going to affect that reading at all?
Yeah, it might. Did what I read to you make any sense?
Yeah, to a certain point.
I mean, you having difficulty with him, and is he putting you in a difficult spot?
That depends on any. No, I just have a problem with. It seems like he's in a certain place when he moves, and I move, and we end up in the same predicament in the same area.
Uh-huh. Is he into anything self-destructive?
No,
No?
no, I don't think so.
Okay, well, let's try it again for your older brother.
Okay,
All right?
all righty. I'm gonna go there.
Okay there, Gene. Got two heads. Three tails. This one's different. Two tails. Two heads. Two heads. Three tails. So you got two moving lines here. This one will be interesting. Okay, let's Let's see what we get here, folks. In case you folks just tuned in, I'm the Reverend Bill Kern. This is Satellite Psychic. And we're learning about the I Ching today, folks, which is the Chinese Book of Changes. It's an ancient oracle. It's probably the best oracle that I know. But it takes some thought. You have to consider these things with thought. So you have two Chin, which is 17. Inner world is Sun Ken, another Sun Ken here. Okay, let's see what it says for 17. Following. What are you talking about, him following you? 6 at the top. You are called upon by virtue of your wisdom and expertise to lead another. You will unquestionably become involved, but you will be rewarded for your unselfish commitment. Sounds like your brother looks up to you there, Gene, and he needs your wisdom and your expertise to help him, and you will really be rewarded for your unselfish commitment to helping your brother. So there's a karmic connection there, and he does look up to you. So help him, help him if you can. Let's see what another translation will say to you. Sometimes they give you an insight. Having previously retreated out of reach, you return to help the follower. The sincerity described in the 5th line meets with response. The sage helps the follower to find the correct way. The image of the correct thing to do and the correct thing to say comes of itself at the moment we need it, because we keep the tune to what is essential and correct. During such times, we have the impression of being a conduit for something beyond ourself. And that's the karmic thing that you're thinking about, Gene. A sense of inner peace and comradeship accompanies this mysterious help. Just as the sage returns to help the follower, we return to being open-minded to those who seek our help. So there is a mysterious karmic connection there with your brother. And you really need to help him, because that's what you're supposed to do, Gene. And you'll be rewarded for that. Love your brother, you'd be glad one day you have a brother. It's interesting, the older brother's following the younger brother, but sometimes that happens. This refers to a man, an exalted sage, who has already put the turmoil of the world behind him, but a follower appears who seems to understand him and is not put off. So the sage comes back into the world to aid the other in his work. Thus, there develops an eternal tie between the two. How about that? And let's see what the Christian version has to say, which is always... I always like to do it last, because I'm Christian. That's, those are my roots. God is my strength and power, and he maketh my way perfect. That's 2 Samuel 22:33, in case you want to read further in there. Look for spiritual help and all kinds of assistance from those only who have a reverence for the divinity which shapes our ends. As you lead, so will they follow. So, Gene, to turn to God, and your brother's turning to you. It's a karmic situation. You've helped him before, and you need to help him now. And you'll be rewarded for it. So, folks, we still have time for one more question. 212-695-8583. Feel free to call in here. This is Satellite Psychic. I'm Reverend Bill Kern, and we're doing the I Ching today, folks. I think I'm going to have another lesson on this so you folks can really get the full scope of this. Probably take more than one lesson, but perhaps in another lesson I can show you how to do it. Remember, it's the I Ching workbook by R.L. Wing, which is the one that I really, really like.
Line 1, please.
Line 1. Hello, caller.
Hi, I have a question.
Okay.
My name is Cheryl, and I'm taking a new direction in my work this year, and I want to know what I have to do to make it successful.
Okay, work, and you want to make it successful.
What do I have to do?
Okay, now where are you calling from, Cheryl?
From Northern California,
What's the town?
Kelseyville.
Seville?
Kelseyville.
Okay. You want to hold on or you want to go?
I'll go and listen on the TV.
Okay. Bye-bye, Cheryl. Let's see what we get here for Cheryl. Got 2 tails. 3 heads. Got a moving line. 3 heads again. 2 heads. 2 heads. 2 heads. That roll put the candle out, folks. I don't know what that means, but we'll see. Don't be superstitious now. There's nothing to it here. 2 heads, ahead, 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 ahead. Okay. This is really a puzzle here, folks. Chin Sun, so that's 44. Inner world of the creative and the future arrangement. Kun, Chin Kun, so it's 12. So let's see, 44. Temptation. Oh my goodness. You have 9 in the third. Although you are tempted to fall into an inferior situation, you are held back in spite of yourself. You must now resolve this indecisive conflict. Give it a great deal of thought, gain some insight, and you can avoid mistakes. I'll do that again for you, Cheryl. Although you are tempted to fall into an inferior situation, you are held back in spite of yourself. You must now resolve this indecisive conflict, give it a great deal of thought, gain some insight, and you could avoid mistakes. Let's see what the Wilhelm translation. That's something to think about. I don't know. Well, you know what it's talking about more than I do, I'm sure. Okay, 44. 9 in the third. There is a temptation to fall in with the evil element offering itself. A very dangerous situation, and you know what we're talking about here on your job there, Cheryl. Fortunately, circumstances prevent this. One would like to do it, but cannot do it. This leads to painful indecision in behavior, but if we gain clear insight into the danger of the situation, we shall at least avoid more serious mistakes. And let's see, I'll give you the Christian one. That's interesting, Cheryl. You watch yourself there. 9 in the third. On his thighs a name is written. This is from Revelation 19:16. The thigh symbolizes the creative organs of man, which from a phallic standpoint means the male and female principle within you, your conscious and unconscious mind. When it is said there is no skin on your thigh, it means you are not being covered by faith and confidence in the one power, and you are being disturbed by external conditions. Redirect your emotions along the God-like channels and get back into the beam of divine right action. So, you gotta straighten up there, Cheryl. Let's see, there's one on one, Mike? Was there another call?
Nope.
It's time to close down here, huh? Well, folks, it's an interesting day. I hope you all enjoyed it. I will do another lesson. Tomorrow I have a shiatsu teacher coming in to talk to you about shiatsu, which is a really interesting technique of working with pressure points, and you'll be very interested to hear what Marianne Funamayor has to say about that. So, folks, I want to thank you all for watching. Remember, this is the day the Lord has made for you to be joyous and content.
Be happy you are alive, folks. There are a lot of good things going on out there in the world. Make sure you're a part of them. God bless you, and bye-bye. Perfect. She Shinrai, she Shinrai, she Shinrai, shin. She Shinrai, she Shinrai, she Shinrai, shin. She Shinrai, 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 shin.